Well, my bags are packed and I'm off to Sydney. I'm catching up with David in his modified Porsche 911. Now this is painted in a old Ferrari Dino colour, Verde Germoglio. But the big question in today's video is, should he convert this modified Porsche 911 to an RWB?
Back down sort of Wentworth towards King's Cross and out that way might be best. So just let me see where I go from here. I'll do a quick maps.
Although I lived in Sydney for a year, I spent most of my time in WA.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Fly out
I was, yeah. So I'd get here on a weekend and then just stay in the same spot all the time. What's it got in it?
3.4.
And it's lumpy as well, isn't it?
Big cams are in there, and it's running ITBs, like individual throttle wheels, from Race Head Rama.
So I'm going to have to look at that, because I'm wanting to do that on the RWB.
Yeah, I would recommend those. That's a great throttle body kit for the price.
Yeah, honestly, for the price. I was like, well, that's brilliant.
I'm trying to think, you may have to do a crank angle sensor and run some engine management then. I'm not certain
they do a little bit on that, they do, but I think, because a few guys have had it in Melbourne.
I'm trying to think who put me onto him in the first place, because I did get recommended by somebody.
They're getting a name.
Yeah, they're getting a name, yeah. He's a big BMW guy and fantastic at that, but he does do kits for the 3.2s, 3 litres, 3.6s.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I've heard he's getting a real name about him. And a few guys have said, like, if you buy the kit and you get it sent over to Melbourne, then, you know, you're learning how to do it and it takes a little bit longer to do and stuff.
Exactly.
Where
Rama will actually do it for you as well, and he's got little computers that he sells, not too elaborate, but they'll certainly run the car and be pretty tunable. The big thing is the tune, because they let in so much air.
Yeah.
The guys struggle to sort of get the tunes right.
I was probably going to rebuild my engine,
and
then probably just ship the car over to Sydney.
I think so.
Get them to do it, and then either drive it back or ship it back, and it's just done and dusted.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we spoke about Agatino, didn't we, at German Sports, about the gearbox rebuild?
Yes.
Was that for that car as well?
Yeah.
So
funny now I've changed the shifter.
Oh, it's better?
I'm just going to leave the gearbox as it is now. It's amazing how much that made a difference.
Absolutely. What did you put in there?
Just a Wevo.
A Wevo, cool.
And it worked perfectly.
Oh, it's good? Cleaned it all up?
I cleaned it all up.
Yeah.
I don't think the gearbox needs a rebuild. I think it was just, it's worn too much for the precision that comes with those CAE shifters.
Absolutely. I almost bought one for this car, the CA, and then I read some reviews that people said they were like too short.
Yeah.
So I steered away from it. I ended up with this exact shift from Renline, the billet shifters they've put out.
Yeah, because I'd looked at these as well, and for my 915 I was just like, is it a little bit too close, and I'm better just going a little bit further away rather than still trying to keep it a little bit too close.
Yeah, possibly.
Because these are a nice fit.
They're a nice fit, and I had a Ren shift in there before, which was a great little shifter, but I always felt it was too short.
I like a
lot of reach.
Yeah,
I like a taller shifter, and it's been good. I've still got some adjustments to make. So
yes, the dash,
Alcantara, everything. Like it's sort of like, it's very much my interpretation of a car. It's really stripped back. Sort of deleted all the knee pads and things like that. So it's got
that's a nice touch.
Sort of.
Yeah. Did you make this as well?
I made everything in here, really.
Because that's really clean.
Yeah, so that's just been pressed. I've got a manufacturing business, and you know, we've got metalworking equipment, so we pressed that up, or cut it on the CNC, then pressed it.
And even though you got a big cam, lumpy, you can still drive it through the city and it's not horrendous. It
behaves very well, and even on the previous tune, which was done by Rob, who's one of Agatino's friends, great guy, he just street tuned it. Same thing, like really good drivability down low, revs to about 7,500 when it's really going. It's even smoother now with this tune, it's great.
And do you know what cams you got in it? Or is it custom cams?
They're a custom cut cam, and Stan Adler at Performance 9, who's become a great friend of mine, supplied all the parts for the engine, and I think they're a cam he gets built. I think they're Australian made actually. My thing was to get the Doherty race cams in there, or DR Cams is the website from the US.
Yeah, okay.
And they make really, really cool cams for these Porsche motors. And there was a few elements to it, like the wait times, and I actually didn't do the rods in the engine. I left the standard rods and just did the pistons, high comp pistons only.
Yep.
So there's a few things about the amount of lift and how much the engine would rev and things like that with standard rods in there. So
yeah,
I could have gone a bit further, twin plugging and all that sort of stuff, but it's all time, it's all money.
it is, and it adds up a lot. And what you kind of find is that, or what I've found, like a standard engine rebuild 25,000, and then you go, it's multiples of 10 or 15,000 on top, and it
absolutely,
it's not like
you can spend
I pay to spend an extra $5,000 and that's okay.
That's right.
It adds up bloody quick.
Absolutely, and then you need a gearbox to support it. This is still running a 915.
Yeah, good point. That all
those things,
because then everything starts to go, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. Certainly for an RWB, I think they deserve like a really outlandish modified engine as well. So
yeah, and they definitely deserve more than my 5-cylinder.
No, that's right. That's right. Is it still running a bit rough? Is it?
Yeah, and it's exhaust valves. It's not the rings; it's the exhaust valves. They need a chimney sweep, I think. Really, some old boy up there with that. Yeah, that's what they
sooty. Yeah. Part of the reason for the retune recently was we were going to put a few sensors on the motor just for safety and like fuel pressure and things like that. Because I had it on the dyno 6 or 8 months ago, and it was a good tuner, but not for Porsches, unfortunately. And I came back with too much fuel pressure. I was fouling plugs.
Okay.
Like it was really problematic, and it sort of spooked me because you can glaze the barrels, like you can actually. And so we took it back to the original tune, and I said, all right, I should get some monitoring here so I can see what's going on. But mate, we didn't get around to that. We only tuned it, got about 15 horsepower more from it, and never ending. These things.
Yeah, and there's a lot of tuners, you see them around that do BMWs and Golf Mark 7s.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's not the same tuning one of these.
It's not with the air-cooled stuff, and particularly with the throttle bodies, like I said, because you've got to make sure they're perfectly balanced to start, and then you do have that, like when you put your foot down, so much air comes into them, so they're really hard to tune out, like bogging down and things like that. So. Oh, it's super. Yeah, it's actually running beautifully. To be honest, on the freeway, I was in 5th gear, 10 minutes from my house, and I didn't take it out of 5th until I got to the end of the freeway, which was about an hour and 20 minutes. So you'll roll down to 80 kilometers an hour at 2,000 RPM, put your foot down, and it pulls easily back up to 110. And further if you're game. So stop for a cup of coffee. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
We get to go a bit faster here anyway, so there you go.
What's the exhaust as well?
So there's steel 1 5/8 inch race headers.
Yeah.
And it's got a Dansk muffler on the back, like a big 2 in 2 out. But it's a lot of intake noise you're getting as well. Like that's all the throttle bodies that you'll get with it. So it pulls relatively well for an NA car.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
I think, I don't know, but...
and plus, what it's got is it's got the pull at the bottom end.
That's right, yeah. So this car was booked in, or is booked in, to be RWB in the new year. And a few people now, including yourself, have said, just don't do it to the car. It's got a new life now, a new character, and it is what it is. And don't change it. So I'm sort of looking for another donor car at the moment to RWB. So
yeah, and because this has gone through its own outlaw experience.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was going to be interesting to come and look at it today and then go.
Well, that was kind of part of the thing for this. catching up today, wasn't it? Just so I wanted
Yeah.
your feedback. I did ask you point blank. It's a tough one.
I could see it.
I know, me too. That's the thing.
Because then you do the kit on it, and you've got nothing else to do.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I still just, that's what drew me to, you know, the modification thing drew me to Porsches. I love to work on things, you know, make like manufacture parts and things like that, and no other car kind of offered that ability.
Yeah.
And then I didn't want to get into newer cars. Like I was looking at, you know, more recent M3s, E46s, so on, and they're all a little bit hard to work on at that point. Where these, you kind of, there's a whole movement, if you want to say, of modifying these cars.
Yeah,
like,
there is,
majorly. There's only two schools, and one is like bog standard, must have all logbooks exactly filled out on the right dates and kilometres, and you know, have some celebrity who's owned it or something like that. And the other people are like, you know, let's just chop this thing up,
and
whatever it looks like. You know, I bought this car with a it's a 75 car, and I bought it with an 87 3.2 in it, which is why I didn't feel, even though it's Australian delivered this car, I didn't feel too bad, you know, wide bodying and cutting and shutting.
Would you keep it the same colour?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm a fan of this colour. It's a custom colour. A mate of mine he's a great painter, and he's a PPG rep, or was a PPG rep. I said I want an olive green. My daughter's name is Olive, and it's my favourite colour, and he sort of came up with this. You know, it's like the first option he gave me, and we went with it. It's kind of like a Ferrari colour, the Verde something they call it. They did Dinos in it in the 70s.
I think an old Porsche carries these colours off
Pretty well.
perfect.
Yeah.
And then when you're driving around a city like Melbourne or Sydney,
Absolutely.
it's vibrant.
Gets a lot
it
of
gives
attention.
something back.
Yeah, even just waiting at the front of your hotel for 3 or 4 minutes, you know, I had about 5 or 6 people come and take photos of the car. The first question is always, do you race it? But I think, like, I'll run out of talent well before the car does, so I think I'll stick to the roads with this thing.
Yeah, it's nice coming to see the car. Because when you see photos of it, I'm like, oh, would you RWB it or not? How would you handle that? But now sat in it and seeing it, I don't know if my opinion will change. Potentially while we're having a coffee.
Let's have a look. We'll try and park by the cafe and stare at it while we drink a cup of coffee somewhere. So.
No sunroof?
It was a non-sunroof car.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a 911S in Viper Green.
Oh, Viper Green.
Viper Green, yeah, which I believe is, and it was painted in like an iteration of Viper Green.
Yeah.
And it was like a Bad Boys 964 tribute when I bought it, in the Viper Green colour. Had the turbo vents in the guards at the back.
Oh, okay.
White Miami Vice interior. It wasn't a bad car. It was a fine car. It needed some work, but it certainly wasn't my style. And I don't love a forward date either. I don't think they ever look quite right. You can get away with the 964 obviously with the G-body cars, but when they start getting 993s from G-bodies, they can never match that sort of muscular rear guard stance that they get. So it's a 75. I spoke to Stan again. He kind of gave me some. He was like the first guy I really called about parts and things like that. And he said, make an IROC car out of it. And I said, what's IROC? I had no idea. And he had a couple of them because he's got a race car and a road car himself. And put me in touch with Simon at AutoWorks, who happened to be selling an IROC kit. So with a ducktail spoiler, so I got all that off Simon. And when a couple of people said maybe you should reconsider RWBing that car, I thought, oh goodness me, and I've kind of fallen in love with again how it looks now. So I'm uncertain.
This looks exactly probably how I thought it was going to look.
Yeah.
The kit is brilliant.
So they're Rama's throttle bodies, and Rama suggested going with these carbon rain hats instead of the socks, which to me look way cooler. But
Yeah, because they're
airflow, because they have a proper air cleaner inside there.
okay, because they're his, aren't they?
They are his throttle bodies and hats.
Yeah. And it's a great kit, and for the price as well.
It's really neat, and
I had not noticed the kind of setup there as well.
Yeah. So the reason some of the wiring looks really standard in there, like all the ignition cables and things are of a 3.2 harness.
And you've still got the old fuse box as well and things.
I was told I bought a kit on the internet. I can't think of the name of the kits, but it was basically like a tunable ECU you buy that plugs into the Motortronic 3.2 plug.
Oh, okay.
Right, and what it allows you to do is make modifications, like put on crank angle sensors, throttle bodies, throttle position sensors, things like that all plug into it. So it's a way to kind of keep a bog standard harness with a modified ECU, basically, a tunable ECU. And no matter what we did, we couldn't make it work. So we ended up having to splice in a Haltech harness to a Porsche harness, which Robbie, who tuned the car originally, was instrumental in doing, because I certainly can't wire cars. So it's a bit of a mismatch, but it works quite well.
So I understood from the Race Head guys, bearing in mind I've only spoken to them a little bit, that when they provide the kit, they can provide the ECU.
Correct.
Yeah, and then they provide. Yeah, okay, and then they provide the new wiring harness to go through.
So I'm not.
But that didn't really work with yours, then, did it?
Well, I did.
Because I did notice you had a Haltech, and I was like, I don't think that comes with
It's not Rama's. Rama uses a Eurotech or something like that, I think they're called.
Yeah.
And I can't remember my rationale at the time, but I decided not to go with that, or maybe Rama wasn't offering that service at the time. But he actually did help start this car.
Okay.
Rama came over to Ag's shop with Rob, and they had the computers, and he also did get this car going, because there was a few teething issues with the first start. So, but no, it's really settling in now, the motor.
It's a great kit.
It's probably got a couple of thousand Ks on it now.
I love these. I do.
They're cool, aren't they?
And here's a bit of a secret tip. And if anybody gets to this far in the video, I think what I'm going to do when I do the RWB is I'm thinking of hydro dipping the casing in the shell on the back here, and then hydro dipping these as well with like an RWB blue Gigasus style. Because I've seen the hydro dip, and sometimes people are like, well, it won't cope with the heat and things like that. But I've seen it on old dog boxes for Volkswagens and things. It works brilliantly.
Yep, I think it does. What sort of heat
I don't know if that alarm is indicating that that's a stupid idea from over there, but I genuinely think it's a good idea. So what we've got there is a crank
angle sensor off this toothed, it reads off this toothed gear here.
And you made all that and fitted all that.
Yeah, we kind of had to build it, because the kits, I think Adapt Motorsport in the US do make a kit, but that was completely sold out at the time, so we built that. But when it was in tuning, the tuner found that there was, at about 3,000, and it had 10 degrees of timing to it. And I'm actually wondering if that's something related to the wiring harness more than the actual sensor and motor itself, potentially.
Maybe. It does make a difference.
Yeah. So I might look at doing a blade fuse classic retro.
Yeah, and we were talking just a second ago
Yeah.
about it. I don't know why, and I can't explain that. Swapping those fuses out to a blade, and all of a sudden the connection's a little bit better, but the car just runs different. It does. It is safer, but it just runs different. So swap GoPros, coolers, front mount oil cooler.
Yep.
The word that I got, Churn asked Nakai for me.
Yeah.
And he said that he preferred the two in the wheel arches.
Yeah.
And the reason was the front one gets the front bulkhead.
Yes.
Sits almost behind your oil cooler.
It does.
And then disrupts your airflow.
Yep.
And he said what he found was when he was racing that it didn't work particularly well. And as soon as he swapped to a second wheel arch and removed the front one, he said the cooling was immediately 100 times better.
There you go. So I cut out the bulkhead on mine to allow better flow around it. Yeah.
And I can on my kit put the on reflection in Melbourne, I don't want to own up to this too much, but might not have been one of my best decisions. Yeah.
I put in one of those. It's actually not hooked up at the moment, but it's a guy in Queensland makes some Speedies Air, I think he calls himself.
Is it electric?
Yeah, it's like a little electric blower with ceramic like heater bars in there, and it blows like piping hot air in through the windscreen vents.
And just sits in the front.
Yeah, it just sits in the front. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just like a box, like a shoebox size.
Yeah, maybe. That might be a good idea.
And they're relatively inexpensive, like versus sort of $500 versus.
Oh really?
Other options, yeah. So
because when you say sometimes relatively inexpensive, Porsche,
yeah.
Oh well, that'll be multiple.
There's no such thing, yeah.
But that's not a bad.
Well, it's certainly like if you want just heat, if you can handle. I mean, I'm toying with the idea of air conditioning this car because the mahogany build backdate we did is coming down to Sydney to get a custom air conditioner put through it.
Is that getting one of the classic retrofit ones
It's not
England
actually,
or somewhere else?
No, so it's utilising standard parts, so it's still running a off the crank compressor rather than electronic.
Yeah, okay.
Because you have to put a massive alternator in them with the classic retro fit air cons. And then I've heard mixed reports about the climate. They reckon the further north you go, the less effective it is as far as cooling. So I think they work very well around the lower parts of Australia.
And I've heard that, which is strange because I saw one installed in Dubai and it worked brilliantly.
And that's the other thing.
Absolutely fantastic. But the stories I've heard about here in Australia have been that they've not worked particularly well.
It's a big investment, and I didn't want to take the risk. And I know that I followed Home Built by Jeff, Jeff?
Yep.
Yeah. And I know he put one of those in his car when he built it, and he's pretty spot on with his decision making. I felt when he was doing that build.
So in the Targa, if you open the glove box, I've got glove beanie scarf, and then I've got a bottle of sun cream just to cover every occasion in Melbourne.
Right.
Yeah, for such a cami modified car, driving through the city,
it's pretty well behaved, isn't it?
Yeah.
Since the
it's not burping or
it does do
idles great.
It idles really well. It loves a massive backfire when it's over fueling. So when you come off the gas when you're giving it a bit.
And I know I'd had genuinely opinion that you shouldn't RWB this car, and I know this might be controversial on the video as well because sometimes the RWB, although I have an RWB,
they
sometimes the RWB videos on the channel stink and nobody watches them.
That's right.
However,
all haters gonna hate, as they say. That's right. Yeah.
However, now having seen this, I tell you what, it'd be a cracker of an RWB.
That'd be a pretty cool car.
And I think why I might have been put off from you RWBing it before was because when you said it was like an IROC body kit and things, then genuinely inside and what people have done with engines and things like that tend to have that IROC kind of style.
Yes, that's right.
Where this doesn't have that.
It's very outlawy, isn't it? That's
yes. And I think that then changes my perception of, well, because if it was very IROC, I'd be like, no, it's actually an IROC.
Yeah, that's right.
But although it's got an IROC kit, it's not really an IROC.
No, that's right. That's right. I feel like it's just a. I don't even like saying it's an IROC because it's not. It's missing the IROC tail. It's iconic. But I also don't like the term outlaw as well. I think it's just overused, and people put on a set of wheels and a different gear shifter and say it's an outlaw now, and it's just not. And
plus, with steel fenders and flares. Like that'll look cracking with the kit on it.
I think it'll look really good. Absolutely.
I love it.
Thanks.
Yeah, I like genuinely. They're like buses, those ITBs.
Yeah.
As soon as I thought about doing it, and a couple of people mentioned it, I bumped into a load of people who have had it done, and everybody's got a brilliant story about it.
Oh, look, he's just...
Those Racehead guys, by the way, you should think about sponsoring me at some point, because I'll end up doing a lot of videos on you. So if you're watching, get on board.
Get on board, Rama. Get on board. He's a great guy. He knows his stuff back to front,
And then you've got nothing else to do with this. You do the RWB kit.
The cars will be finished.
You're done.
Really? Yeah. I don't know if I'd do I kind of want to put it on coilovers, but After speaking to Churn as well, I think he still runs torsion bar system. So I believe they send you the heights of the setup for the torsion bars prior to the guy coming in.
Yes.
So he doesn't have to do like the spring plate off torsion bar adjustments, purely just with the spanners.
Yeah.
So I think it's as much about having the RWB as it is for the look of them as well, and like the history of RWB
and it does open up a different world.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Like with people you meet.
With people you meet, with the kind of things that you kind of go to.
Absolutely.
Like there's a whole different experience about it. Yeah, I think this would be killer as an RWB.
Done. Curious to see the comments.
Can be mixed.
I have a feeling
Can be mixed.
I have a feeling since the viral video of the tow hook getting glued on.
We're gonna go take a photo. We're done here. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Great drive today, because you've done 2 hours here, 2 hours back.
Yep.
I've had a horrendous flight.
It's been fun.
Hope you've enjoyed the video. We've decided it's an RWB.
It's going to be an RWB, absolutely.
All thumbs up, no thumbs down. See you guys, bye. This probably won't make the video, but my wife was there, took the dog there. She'd have a bacon sandwich, feed the dog the bacon. This little dog comes over to her one day, sits down. She goes, here, have a little bit of bacon. Dog's eating the bacon. Owner puts his paper down and goes, no, he won't eat that. He's a good little Jewish dog. Oh. This dog has inhaled that bacon like it had missed it all its life. And it trotted back over to the owner. And there was another guy who just peered over his paper and waved at my wife.